Today I'm going to be doing the Future Classics book tag. This was originated by Eric Carl Anderson and I was tagged by the very lovely Matthew Sharaba, so thank you so much. I had some hesitation about doing this book tag, primarily because my knowledge of book prizes is not as extensive as a lot of people here on BookTube. So because of that, I wasn't sure what value I could add to this conversation. But I decided to go ahead and give it a try. So question number one is pick an established classic that you think will still be relevant in the future. And for this, I went with The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. In this, I was struck by how the topics in this book were very fresh and very modern and still very relevant. I think especially in the realm of relationships and partnership and what that means if there is indeed a loss of self or something to be gained from partnership. Many of the conversations that Dorian and Lord Henry were having regarding the topic, though they were very satirical and a tad inflated, I couldn't help thinking that I had had a lot of these very similar thoughts myself when it came to discussions about relationships and partnership and marriage. The theme of narcissism and solipsism were very fascinating as well, particularly because I think those are traits that are very prevalent in society today. This partnered with resources and lack of consequences and entitlement gives way to a lot of poor decisions being made, and oftentimes with the absence of empathy. I think we see this a lot in young celebrity culture, and we've had several examples of this recently with YouTube celebrities. And though the immediate consequences of that behavior are not always visible, do they indeed leave marks on the soul? And if we had a physical manifestation of our soul, would we be happy with what we see? That also led to a lot of questions for me about image control and use of technology when it comes to narcissism. And even though we're not seeing a lot of examples of how narcissistic behavior and technology intersect, we are beginning to see the consequences of it. So things like deep fakes, for example, where people can take images of you and render them to use them in dishonest ways. And you can see this if you go to any celebrity Instagram account or any model's Instagram account. There are hundreds, possibly thousands of selfies and videos being taken of them. So you have this bank of free images that you can borrow from to get an angle of a person's face, or being able to replicate speech patterns off of videos that are being taken. All of this information can be compiled to use your image and your speech and your behaviors in very dishonest and sometimes very terrifying ways. And for these reasons, I think that this book is still going to be extremely relevant as we move forward in the future. Question number two is pick a recent title you feel has gone under the radar, but which you are confident will be a future classic. For this selection, I went with Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff. This was written in 2016 and was a finalist for the World Fantasy Award. This book takes the stories and archetypes of H.P. Lovecraft and marries them into a tale of a successful Black family living in Jim Crow era Chicago. This book is funny and quick-witted and inventive, and I haven't heard too many people on BookTube talk about this yet. Within the topic of classics being made in classrooms, I think that this book has the potential to reach cult classic status. If it's not discussed in high schools, I think that it could definitely be discussed in universities, especially when talking about the Black experience within science fiction and horror genres. When I was growing up, I recall watching movies like Tales from the Hood, and later on as I got older, the Scary Movie franchises, which did have Black people present in these movies. However, most of the time it was done as parody. And what I think is really great now is that we're starting to see science fiction, speculative fiction, and horror genres that are written with the Black experience in mind. So we have movies like Get Out and books like Lovecraft Country. As an aside, as recently as March, HBO has been discussing making Lovecraft Country into a series that will be directed by Jordan Peele. So that's something cool to look forward to. Also, lest you think a white person is not capable of writing about the Black experience in a profound and meaningful way, I highly encourage you to pick up Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff. Question number 3 is pick a title that won one of your favorite book prizes recently, which you think will still be lauded in 50 years' time. I can't say that this is my favorite book prize, but it's definitely one of my favorite books that has won a book prize, and that is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This won the Pulitzer Prize in 2006, which is not that recent, but in the span of time, it's pretty recent. This book is already quickly establishing itself as a classic, and personally, I think it's one of the best pieces of minimalist literature that has come about in the last 20 years. I think that Cormac McCarthy has a gift for not just writing about time and a place, but writing about presence and atmosphere. This book had so many little special things present within it. I particularly liked that it dealt more with the mundane and pedestrian parts of apocalypse. It's just not something that we see very often. In this book, I think Cormac McCarthy did a wonderful job of constructing a skeleton for you to just hang your own fears and beliefs and devotions and sense of doom, so that at the end of this book, what you were left looking at was your own sort of emotional baggage. And the nihilistic facets of this book was something very notable as well. The position that the man was in and having to raise this child, being charged with raising his son in this environment, where the child wasn't just a child. The child is a man, he is a God, he is present, he is future, he is hope, he is despair, he is all of these things, and none of it matters because you're just shouting into the void. And for those reasons, I think that this book is going to endure as a classic, in addition to it being dissected for style and personality. The 4th question is pick a recent book you haven't read yet, but which you think might become a classic based on reputation alone, reviews, responses on Goodreads, BookTube recommendations, etc. And for this choice, I went with Singh Unburied by Jesmyn Ward. I tried very hard not to hear anything about this book or watch any reviews, but it's very difficult when it is everywhere. Now, based on what I hear about this book, I think that it has the potential to achieve classic status because it is mirroring an experience that is very prevalent in the United States, but doesn't seem to be written about very often. And the experience is that of mixed race children growing up with parents who are either addicted, incarcerated, or both. Children who are being raised by their grandparents, who are living in poverty, who are having to rely on their older siblings to get them through a situation or through life. And children who are forced to grow up a little too fast because of these situations. And I might be a little bit biased because this very closely mirrors my own experience growing up. However, where I come from, this is more often than not the story. Now, I can't speak to how this story is told or how it resolves, but I do think that Jesmyn Ward has the potential to do for this population of people what Alice Walker and Toni Morrison and Maya Angelou did for women and girls growing up in the South. And the last question is, pick a favorite book that you want to save for your grandchildren or your friends' grandchildren in 50 years' time. For this, I cheated a little bit and went with The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. This book is so special in so many different ways. I find myself often giving it to all the new mothers that I know. This book deals with so many large, complicated human issues and manages to distill them in the most impressive, simplistic way. This book deals with friendship, with love, with sacrifice and forgiveness and despair and integrity which I think are all very important things for children to encounter at some point. I'm a big proponent of children having their hearts broken as early as possible. I think that this provides them with a little stoicism and some resiliency, things that are going to be extremely important to possess as they move forward in life. So that was the Future Classics book tag. Thank you again, Matthew, for tagging me. I think this would be a really wonderful tag to revisit in a couple of years. I'd be interested in doing this again just to kind of see how the books have changed or my thoughts on any of these have changed. And I'm not really sure who to tag in this video because I feel like everybody and their mother has done it already. But if you haven't and you're interested, please consider yourself tagged. And please leave some comments about this tag. I would love to hear any feedback or any thoughts that you guys have on these books. Also, like and subscribe and do all those things. And I will definitely see you guys very soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye.